Can we just go ahead and pray real quick? God, I thank you so much for the honor and privilege it is to be here. There is nothing like being in the presence of God. It doesn't matter necessarily how good the singers are. It doesn't matter how good the musicians are. If we don't have the presence of God, we have nothing. If we can't get into the supernatural, if we can't get into the throne room, if we can't leave everything behind, we've got nothing. God, I thank you for being in this place. I thank you for already being here before we even thought of this building being a church building. I thank you for being here when the first musicians and singers started showing up. God, for moving in this place over and over and over again. I pray I be an empty vessel you can speak through and use and guide us, God. In your name. This crime scene occurred several thousands of years ago. We see a man whose body is lying in the field, and you get closer and you try to figure out what's going on, and you realize that it's a young man. He has a blow to the back of his head, and he's dead. He's not breathing, he's not moving, he's not functioning, he is dead. He's Abel. You suspect it's Cain, his brother, that committed this murder, and the result was murder. The reason was jealousy. Most of us know the story about Cain and Abel. One would bring the best of his fruits and vegetables, the other the best of his animals. The difference was solely the heart. It wasn't necessarily that he brought fruit and he brought animals. It was the way that it was presented. In Hebrews 11:4 it says, by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. We still speak of Cain and Abel thousands of years later. I have a coworker at work who's thinking about retirement, and I kind of think about retirement in a long scheme of things like, hey, if I retire at this age, I'll have this much money. If I stay with State Farm, I'll have a pension. If I leave State Farm, I won't have a pension. But to be thought of by people thousands of years after I've left the earth, I've died, I'm not here, physically, we're not existing, is weird. Yeah. It's weird to think that thousands of years, if God doesn't come back, that people could still be either attending this church or talking about what happened in this church. And Cain, he began to be eaten up inside. If you don't know what bitterness feels like, it begins to eat away at who you are, what you are, and it begins to consume everything that you are as an individual. And we don't know how God honored the sacrifices. We just know that he did. And he began to allow bitterness and jealousy, offense to rise up inside of him until he concocted a plan that would end his brother. Now, I don't know if everybody has siblings in the church. I think most of us do. I would be fearful of my brothers. I would want to rip my brothers up when we were kids because they were just so annoying. But never have I ever envisioned killing my own brother. But Cain did. We see in the prior verses God stepping in and he said, Cain, don't do this. What's wrong? What's going on? And Cain doesn't really respond to God. And God's saying, if you just listen to me, I'm going to provide you a way of escape. But if you don't, sin is at your door. And you know that Cain, he refused it because Abel's now dead. And God has put events into our own lives. He has put people into our own lives that says, hey, if you just listen to me for 1 second, 1 moment, I'm going to rescue you from this. We were in the fellowship hall earlier. It was Broxton, Kai, and Adley. Kai and Adley having a little argument. And Kai was trying to swing on a swing and jump over decks. And I'm like, wait. Let's figure this out. If somebody's trying to warn you, you need to listen to them because they probably see something that you don't see. Yeah. But if you don't listen to them and you go ahead and do it, you're probably going to hurt yourself pretty bad and you're going to hurt your brother pretty bad. So it's not necessarily that they're being mean to you. It's that they're trying to educate you and show you what's going on. But the same thing is spiritually and physically with the rest of us. If we have people in our lives and if we don't listen to what they're saying, God is like, hey, I'm putting you in place to say, hey, listen up. Yeah. There's a way of an escape, and sin is at your door if you don't listen. We have to sometimes accept it no matter how hard it is. You look at men, you see men they talk about men being very prideful, being very strong. We're supposed to be the men of the house. We're supposed to be the leaders of the house. We're supposed to fight when it comes time to fight. We're supposed to stand up for our wives and our children when nobody else will do. They talk about men and their pride, but even men and their pride have to still listen to the escape plan. Yeah. Just like, how many women has ever asked their husband to go ask directions? This was before maps came out. Yeah. Before maps. And my mom would be like, go ask your daddy for directions. Go ask him. I don't ask my dad for directions. Go ask him. He knows everything about Northern Virginia. Go ask him. So I'd go ask my dad. Or she would tell, my dad's name is Mike, go ask for directions at this gas station because we're lost in Richmond. We don't even know where we're at. I'm not asking for directions. And we would drive around for an hour trying to figure out where we were at for general conference. And it's just sometimes it's prideful, sometimes like we just don't want to do it. But we have to listen. Cain didn't listen. He had a lack of fear even prior to killing Abel. He had a lack of fear of God. In Genesis 4:10-16, you see God talking to Cain, and he said, "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground, and now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in this earth, or in the earth." It reflects back to the initial curse that God gave to Adam and Eve. And Cain said unto the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Think about it. In the last verse, he went out from the presence of the Lord. He left the very presence of God. In my mind, I'm thinking, when you look at Adam and Eve, you can think that God is literally walking with Adam and Eve in the garden. And it almost seems like God is walking with Cain and with Abel, and he leaves the presence of God to never come back. Imagine the knowledge that when you leave this place, you can never feel the presence of God again. That this is your last time, your last chance, your last moment, and that you will never feel the presence of God again. That is only a part of what the lake of fire will be like. And you study it out more, and what could potentially or possibly make this worse is some scholars say that the definition of Cain is possession. And you got to think of Eve when she's being told you're going to have issues when you're giving birth, you're going to be in suffering, and Adam, you're going to have issues when you're trying to plant crops, and you're going to have all these problems. And she's thinking, this might be the Messiah. This just might be the promise that said in Genesis, I think it's 4:16, where it says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed you shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." She's like, this is the son that God has given me to restore us to the promise. And he goes in and he begins to turn what she thought was a promise into a nightmare. It's a call, if you're reading this chapter, to the parents that we have to stand up for our children. We have to fight like we've never fought before. Our children are under attack. Our parents are under attack, but our children are under attack. Even if you don't have children, your future children are going to be under attack. We have to stand up and fight. Amen. My brain works in a lot of what ifs. Like, what if I did this angle on Egypt? What if I did this tune on Egypt? What if this is a song that we're working on airing by next Friday? What if we change some things? Poor Jared gets 1,000 texts from me and we like, do you remember if we need to do this? Do we need to do that? Do we need to do this? Did we do this? And I'm like, what if? What if we missed this? What if we did this? And I wonder in my brain if he could see the Garden of Eden as a kid, and he asked Mom and Dad, what is that place? What is that church? What is that place that we can't go there? And somehow he lost his walk with God and his fear of God. Was it that his parents didn't try hard enough? Was it they didn't show him how to pray? Was it because they didn't show him how to have a walk with God? If you're not teaching them how to worship, the world will. If you're not instilling the fear doesn't mean like, I'm literally scared of God. It means the awe of God into your kids. If I'm not doing it with Liam and Leela, the world will take that And Jared said, I think last week or Wednesday, that there's an artist that said, we are designed to worship something. At some point, we are going to worship something. It can be God or it can be something else. Yeah. But as a parent, we have a job to do no matter how old our kids are. Right. I'm the youngest of 5. My oldest is 13 years older than me. And my mom still gets in her room and she gets down every morning and she says, God, save my family. Save my children. They're 43 years old. They're 30 years old. They're in the age between that. Save my family. My dad's in the church. Save my family. They're thousands of miles away from them. Or hundreds. And they're still praying. And you can look at Cain and you can almost feel and sense his mouth drop open when God finishes giving his curse. And you can sense the fear coursing into his mind and his body when he hears the full curse of God. You're going to be a vagabond, that the earth is not going to bless you, that you're going to be cursed by the earth. And he realizes the hopelessness of the situation that he has put himself in. He's not sorry for the punishment. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry because the punishment is so great that he can't figure out how to bear it. He has become into a place of hopelessness. When was the last time that we looked around, not with physical eyes, because physically we have a good group in here. But spiritually, when we go out to Walmart or we go out to our streets and we look around and we seemingly, God says, pray. Just pray. You don't even know what for. Pray. Our prisons, they're flooded with desperate people. Our border is clogged with people desperate for a better tomorrow. Our own streets were clogged 2 Saturdays ago with people celebrating Van Austin, but they didn't realize what they were missing. Cain was desperate, but he was hopeless. We say we want to see growth. We want to see revival in our streets. We want to see people given the Spirit of God put in them. But are we being what's called malleable to allow God to do that? Yes, we're growing spiritually. This church is insanely awesome for everything that it does, and putting people where God would have them to be, and molding them and making them to where God is positioning them to be. But are we being malleable enough to where God can say, pray? And we go and pray for that person. Cain wasn't willing to. In recent discovery with pottery, they've gone through these tests and they noticed that if they take the pottery and there's a certain test that they do to it, they can actually see the fingerprints on the pottery. And they can tell if it's a man or a woman that has designed this piece of pottery. And it's really cool. You can go look it up, and there's pictures of it. I mean, it doesn't look like a fingerprint to me, but I guess to them it does. And they're like, this is the fingerprint of man. Like, that looks like a smudge of clay. That's all it looks like to me. But this is a fingerprint, and this is a man that designed this, or this is a woman that designed it. And you are going to go through trials. You'll go through a process that seems like you are going to break, that you are going to be destroyed. Don't give up. Yeah. God He's going to use it to mold you. He's leaving His fingerprints on you so that when others look at you, they say, you've gone through this, and you've gone through this, and you've gone through this. How in the world did you make it through this? And then you can just say, I encountered the King. I encountered the King, because the King is the one that set me free. The King is the one that got me here. And we are in a war so intense and so hard. And we all have a job through it. And God is trying to mold us. And He's saying, I'm calling you to be a watchman. And if you don't know what a watchman is, it's someone back in the days when they had walls to protect them. Now who cares about walls when you can send missiles? But it was someone that sat on a wall and said, hey, there's bad guys coming. There's an enemy army coming. Yeah. And they can see further than them. And we are called to be that. Yeah. In Ezekiel 33:6, it said, but what if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned? If the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. Isaiah 59 talks about the separation of Israel from God. And he said in 16, and he saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no intercessor. Therefore his arm brought salvation unto him, and his righteousness it sustained him. He was looking for a watchman. He is looking for a watchwoman. He's looking for somebody that will say, I will go. I will stand. I will fight. My brain thinks it's just like it takes this verse and it thinks of a giant cliff, and hell's on the other side of the cliff, and there's watchmen staged every so many feet. And he's saying, stand, don't give up, don't stop, don't give up. If you give up, they're going to go to hell. If you don't stand, they're going to fall. If we're not willing to stand and man the wall, we will allow them to go to hell. We will allow God to baptize me or us in a desperation so immense that it just doesn't last on a Sunday. It doesn't last on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but it goes home with us in the stores we visit, when we walk the neighborhood. We want to see the physical growth. We're growing spiritually. That's what we need. We need to worship God. That's why we're here, is to worship God, is to get in His presence. But the soul is priceless. You know, if I went up to you and I said, I have $50,000 on this card, which I don't, but if I did, and I said, how much would you sell me Clint's soul? Would you sell for $50,000? Teresa, would you do for Dan? Oh yeah, she's up for it. 100%. She's like, yeah, give me the $50,000 right now. A soul is priceless. So for Teresa, it's $50,000. I'm just kidding. But it is priceless. God Himself has paid for the souls. We claim we believe in God. We come in maybe every time we have a church event, but do we really do that to be with God? Or do we do that to check a box and say, hey, I was here. I showed up. My picture's on Facebook. I'm here. I checked in on Facebook. I have on Instagram. I was there. Or is it out of a desperation to get into God's presence? Are we asking God to remove all the baggage from our lives and allow Him to come in? Or are we just saying, I've checked it? There's a song, I don't remember the guy's last name, Jimmy something, it says, it's called Clear the Stage. And it says, clear the stage and set the sound and lights ablaze. If that's the measure you must take to crush the idols. Jerk the pews and all the decorations too until the congregation's few, then have revival. Tell your friends that this is where the party ends until you're broken. Not just goosebumps for your sins. You can't be social. Then seek the Lord and wait for what He has in store. And know that great is your reward. So just be hopeful, because you can sing all you want to. Yes, you can sing all you want to. You can sing all you want to and still get it wrong. Because worship is more than a song. Yeah. And it keeps going. It says, take a break from all the plans that you have made and sit at home alone and wait for God to whisper. Beg Him, please, to open up His mouth and speak, and pray for real upon your knees until they blister. Shine a light on every corner of your life until the pride and lust and lies are in the open. And read the Word and put to test the things you've heard until your heart and soul are stirred and rocked and broken. And it keeps going. He talks about how anything that we put in front of God is an idol. Anything that we worship before God is an idol. We don't need to worship something that is not deserving of our worship. Right. What are we putting before God? What is causing us to lose sight of it? We promise to do better. Man, I promise a lot of things. We promise to do better, but the moment that we leave those doors is the moment that promise ends. We promise to pray harder. We promise to pray longer. We promise to fast and study more, but we still pray the same way we did a year ago. We promise to truly start studying, but the last time we did a fast was so we could lose weight. When will we be desperate enough to reach the ones that our people would call undesirables? When are we going to move enough until we can do that? The enemy knows that if he can distract you long enough, he can make you think that the way that you're worshiping is just good enough. Right. It's fine. It's good. It's okay. It will get you into heaven. Yeah. But we don't want to just get into heaven. Yeah. A pastor in Virginia recently posted on Facebook and said, we must act biblically, not politically. Basically, we cannot allow ourselves to just confess God with our lips, but our heart, as the Bible says, is far from Him. Or that we're so worried about if the Cowboys are going to win their next game, or if our 2K24 is a PS at an Xbox game, career is going to go great. We say we want change. We say we want to see things done differently. God knows we want to see change in the city. But are we moving toward a hopeless cause because we are simply going through the motions? Romans 8:11 says, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. If we operate in the flesh, we can't please God. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. If so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. And if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin, and the Spirit is life because of righteousness. I don't think Nathan's in here. Liam and I we were reading a story, we try to read the Bible study every night or have a podcast going. And if you don't know the story of Abraham and Isaac, which I think probably everybody does, Isaac is not a little boy anymore. He's probably a teenager. And what happens is when you read these stories, as a parent, it's totally different than when you're not a parent. Yeah. So I'm reading the story and I'm telling him that this Abraham guy, he's like, Abraham, I'm like, oh, he's the father of the Israelites. Yeah, we'll leave it that for you. And so I'm telling the story about him going to the mountain. I said, not Jesus, God, because Jesus wasn't born yet, told him to kill his own son. He's like, yeah. I'm going to do that here. Like, Abraham was told to kill his own son. He said, did he do it? Like, you're going to find out. And so we start going through the story about Abraham. He's walking towards the mountain and the land of Moriah is what it's called. And all I can think about it is Abraham's mind, and he's like, God told me to do this. I got to do it. But he's my only son. What am I going to do? I can't do it, but I have to do it because God told me to do it. And he's in a situation of hopelessness. He can't figure out how to process things. And he's going, and they look up, and they see the mountain, and he just gets worried even more. He's like, we're almost there. I might have 2 more hours left with my kid. I might have only a few minutes left with my kid. And his kid doesn't even ask him what's going on. The men say at the bottom of the mountain, they take the wood and Isaac and himself, and they go up. And Isaac's just, I don't know about y'all, but if my dad had the wood and the stuff to make the fire and the stuff to kill the sacrifice, and there was no animal with us, I would be asking questions. And Isaac doesn't ask questions. And every step, Abraham's going up. And he's getting more worried. And he's getting more worried. And I start crying when I'm telling Liam the story because I'm thinking, well, thank God he didn't kill him. But still, like the worry that he had in him. The hopelessness, because Abraham didn't know that he wasn't going to kill him. Abraham thought he was going to kill Isaac. And the same thing is with us sometimes as we go through this journey of life and God is saying, I need you to do this. I need you to go here. Stephen, I need you to move the text. And I'm like, no, that ain't happening. I need you to go here. And you start getting worried, and you start getting anxiety, and you start getting stressed, and you start getting frustration because you're so hopeless because you don't know how to process. And God's just like, hold on. I've got you. You might not see the end game from where I'm standing at, but I got you. We have a hopeless situation that is coming to this world. And I'm wrapping up if the musicians want to come. But at some point, this world will not be anymore. You hear so many preachers say, you got time. You got time. God's grace doesn't end. It does end. It does. Read the Bible. It ends. There will be a judgment day. Yeah. And it's our duty to try to stand up and fight. Yeah. It's your choice to be saved. It's your choice to stand. It's your choice to empty yourself out and allow God to speak to you. Yeah. And put you out in desperation so you can hear what God is saying and hear the world crying out in desperation. Yeah. You look at 1 Kings 15 and you see initially Asa is the king of Judah. And he begins to say, I know my daddy's walk won't save me. I know my parents' walk will not save me. I know my mommy ain't living right. I know my mom ain't there where she should be. I've got to be right. And he started to remove all those sin from the country. And he began to purge it. And he started to purge his heart. And he said, if I stop here, I've lost it. If I stop where I'm at, sin is at my door and I'm going to be lost. And he did. He stopped there. And you see this later in life when he refuses to turn to God and he throws a prophet in jail because they came and said, listen up, this is your way of escape. If you don't stop, you're going to die. Yeah. No one is going to want it if we don't show them why. We have to get desperate. We have to be on fire. We have to act now because there are lost souls going out there. Isaiah 5:14 talks about hell is literally enlarging itself. That's a scary thought. Hell itself, where you're going to go and you die, if you're not right with God, you're not living right, is enlarging itself because there's so many souls that are going to go to hell or are going to hell. David and I were talking earlier, and the Bible talks about the weeping and gnashing of teeth. And David, that makes a good point. He said that I think the reason why there's weeping and there's gnashing of teeth is because those people that said, I know God. I know He's my friend. Like Jared said earlier, you can know the VIP, but does the VIP know you? I know Jesus. I go to church every time, or most every time. Jesus is like, I don't know you. And they go and they beat the doors of the church down, and they're ripping up the carpets with their teeth because they can't feel the presence of God. And that's sometimes because we go out in public and we're like, we know Jesus. And I will say I've done it before, and I know Jesus, but I see people and I don't go talk to them because I'm scared of what they'll say. But I don't want to be the reason my coworkers go to hell. I don't want to be the one that looks and say, Stephen, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you warn me about this place? Hopelessness is coming. It's guaranteed. We got to ask ourselves if we're going to stand up and warn the world, or if we're just going to sit there in our pews and be silent and be quiet and hope that we can make it to heaven ourselves. If you want to find a place to pray, you can. God's grace is so sufficient. And it is so wonderful. It is so good. But there is a point in time where His grace will be no more.
Yeah.
And it's up to us if we're going to stand and say, not my kids, God. They're not going to go to hell on my watch. It's not going to be because of me that they're not going to heaven. It's not my coworkers that are not going to make it to heaven because it's my fault. It's not my neighbors who I don't even know who they are.